I never thought a Tuesday morning could change the way I see the world. But that's the funny thing about moments like this, they don't announce themselves, they just walk right up and knock you flat when you're not looking. I was standing in my driveway with a paper coffee cup in one hand and my phone in the other, half awake, half planning my day when a patrol car rolled up slow, too slow, like it was hunting for something. I remember thinking vaguely, great, what now? The officer stepped out and didn't even say hello. No good morning, no sir, nothing polite or human. He just looked me up and down and said, "You live here." The way he said it wasn't curiosity, it was accusation. I laughed a little at first, not because it was funny, but because sometimes you laugh when something is so ridiculous your brain hasn't caught up yet. "Yeah," I said, pointing behind me, "that house right there. Why?" He didn't like that answer. I could see it in his face, the tightening jaw, the eyes already convinced of something ugly. He told me there'd been reports of suspicious activity. Suspicious. That word again. Funny how it always seems to float toward people like me. I asked what kind of activity and he just shrugged and said, "People who don't belong." That's when the laugh died in my throat. Let me rewind a bit because you need to understand who I was before that moment, not just what happened to me. My name's Marcus Reed. I'm 39. I work a regular job in logistics management, nothing flashy, nothing criminal, despite what some people seem to assume when they look at me. I saved for years to buy that house, missed vacations, drove an old car long after it stopped being cute. Every brick in that place meant something to me. It was proof that I'd made it somewhere safe, or so I thought. Back in the driveway, the officer asked for my ID. I told him it was inside. He told me to go get it. I asked if I was being detained. He stared at me for a long second like he wasn't used to being asked that. "Don't get smart," he said. "Just do what I tell you." There it was, that tone. The one that says this isn't about rules anymore, it's about power. I felt that familiar mix of fear and anger rise up in my chest. You know the one. The voice that says stay calm, don't escalate, don't give them a reason, fighting with the other voice screaming, "Why do I have to shrink just to survive a conversation?" I told him calmly that I hadn't done anything wrong and that I'd like to know why I was being questioned on my own property. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his breath. Coffee and something sour. "You people always say that," he muttered. That's when my neighbor came outside. Mrs. Collins' older white woman lived next door for years. She'd watched my dog when I traveled, brought over cookies at Christmas. She asked if everything was okay. The officer snapped at her to go back inside, said this was police business. She didn't. She pulled out her phone instead. That made him even angrier. He told me again to produce ID. I said I would, but that I was going to record the interaction. He scoffed. "Of course you are," he said, rolling his eyes. "Everyone's a lawyer now." I started my camera anyway. My hands were shaking not from fear alone, but from the realization that this could go somewhere bad fast. I took a step toward my front door, slowly narrating every movement like I'd been taught by 100 warning stories online. As I moved, my elbow bumped into the trash bin near the garage. It tipped slightly, not even falling over. That tiny, sound plastic scraping concrete was enough. He shouted, hand going to his belt, yelling that I was making a threatening movement. I froze. My heart slammed so hard I thought it might crack a rib. That's when he grabbed the pressure washer hose coiled near my wall. I hadn't even used it yet that day. He yanked it up, pointed it at me like a weapon. I remember saying, "Officer, that's not necessary," my voice cracking despite my effort to stay calm. He smiled. Actually, smiled. "Maybe this'll cool you down," he said. The blast hit me at the chest first, knocking the air clean out of my lungs. It felt like being punched by something solid. Then it hit my face. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. I stumbled backward, slipping on wet concrete, crashing down hard. Water slammed into me over and over, relentless, loud, humiliating. I heard shouting, Mrs. Collins screaming, someone else yelling to stop. It felt like forever, but later they told me it was about 30 seconds. 30 seconds can feel like an eternity when you think you might drown standing up. When it stopped, I lay there gasping. Soaked, coughing, my phone skidding across the driveway. The officer stood over me, breathing heavy like he'd just finished a workout. Next time, he said, "Do what you're told." He turned away like it was over, like he'd just taught a lesson and moved on. That was my breaking point. Something inside me snapped, not into violence, but into clarity. I wasn't going to let this disappear. I sat up, water dripping off my clothes, my whole body shaking, and I said loud enough for everyone filming to hear, "You just assaulted me." On my property, on camera. He laughed and said no one would believe me. Here's the twist he didn't see coming. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my work badge. Not a police badge, a state investigator credential, the kind you don't flash unless you have to. I'd never needed it outside work before. I held it up steady this time and said, "I investigate use of force complaints, including yours." The color drained from his face so fast it was almost comical if it hadn't been terrifying moments earlier. His confidence collapsed. He started talking fast, tripping over his words, saying it was a misunderstanding, that he felt threatened, that he didn't know who I was. Exactly. He didn't know who I was, and that was the whole problem. More officers arrived. Supervisors. Internal affairs. The footage spread before the water dried on my clothes. The weeks that followed were brutal. Interviews, statements, watching that video over and over, reliving every second. But something else happened too. People spoke up. Neighbors testified. Complaints surfaced. Patterns emerged. Turns out I wasn't his first misunderstanding. I was just the first one with proof and a platform that couldn't be ignored. In the end, he lost his badge. Criminal charges stuck. Policies changed. Training was reviewed. Was it justice? Some days it feels like a win. Other days, it feels like a reminder of how close things came to going very differently. I still live in that house. I still flinch when a patrol car slows down. Some scars aren't visible. So here's why I'm telling you this. Not because I'm special, not because I handled everything perfectly, but because moments like this happen every day to people without cameras, without witnesses, without credentials to pull out at the last second. The real question isn't what I did. It's what you would do. Would you record? Would you speak up like my neighbor did? Or would you look away and hope it wasn't you next time? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Argue with each other if you need to. Talk about right and wrong, power and fear, justice and bias. Because silence is comfortable, but it's never neutral. And the next time something feels off, remember doing nothing is still a choice.